Hello and welcome to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiaga. As always, joining you today on March 19th, 2024. Special shout out to my dad. It's his birthday today. I don't know how old he's turning, but he's old. He's old. He's turning older. So, special shout out to him and on his birthday today. But regardless, I have a great show planned for you guys today. A lot of interesting topics. Breaking news relatively, because heading into this, I had planned a story, but things changed. Then I'm bringing that to you guys on today's episode, as well as Deion Sanders and his comments that he made on his son, Shedeur Sanders, and where he would love to see him play in 2025, as well as the Arizona Cardinals adding some new luxury stuff to their stadium. Very exciting stuff that I'm very excited to talk about. The Chargers losing two of their best wide receivers and what that indicates on where this team is heading in terms of identity under Jim Harbaugh. And Mike Williams officially signing with the New York Jets today on a one-year deal. I'll get into all of that. All of that coming up on today's show. But before I get into all the news and stuff like that, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, to please use the tip and donations link running across the ticker below me at gsmcpodcast.net. It makes sure that I'm able to see your question, read it out loud on air, and it makes it more of a discussion, a conversation, which is always better in my opinion. So if you would, please use the tip and donations link, gsmcpodcast.net, with any of your questions. We always appreciate it at GSMC Sports Network anytime you guys are able to do that. Going on to the first story, the chip shot story, as always, has to do with Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur Sanders. A great performance this past season in college football for the University of Colorado. Shedeur Sanders obviously making a lot of headlines, being one of the top, you could say, younger quarterbacks in college football this past season. Very exciting style of play. A lot of eyeballs drawn in because it's Deion, because it's its son, and these new players coming over to the University of Colorado. But now Shedeur Sanders is heading into what is most likely his final season in college football, and a lot of people are going to start talking about where he's going, where he wants to get drafted, which teams are interested, which teams will be in the top 3, top 5, or top 10 to where they could have the opportunity to draft Shedeur Sanders. But for all those teams, it better be somewhere warm because his father, Deion Sanders, prime time, is not happy about him potentially going to a cold weather city. He said it in some comments recently. He was on the SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio with Chris Russo, and they were talking about this year's draft class, specifically Caleb Williams. In a part of that interview, they were talking about him, getting drafted number 1 overall, most likely to the Chicago Bears. And it came up to a point in the discussion where, they were talking about Caleb, obviously coming from USC, and that transition from warm weather, always sunny, great climate in California, to shifting that over to Chicago and basically always being in the cold, one of the earlier cities, places to play where it turns colder earlier. So Prime made it an emphasis to talk about that, and in his part of the interview, he said, in regards to his son and kind of comparing the two situations with Caleb, he said, I don't want my kid going nowhere cold next year. He grew up in Texas. He played in Jackson, Mississippi, played in Colorado. Season's over before it gets cold in Colorado. I'm just thinking way ahead. I don't want that for him. And if you know anything about Deion Sanders and just the way that he is, he's never shy about saying anything, about saying how he feels. He'll let you know. And just in any of his press conferences that you see him in the interviews, he's always himself, very, very much himself, very admirable. I think it makes it very entertaining. But in this instance, saying that about his son, a lot of people might think that could be off-putting by Deion Sanders in saying something like that about his son, especially heading into this season where he's coming off a great year where he put up numbers like almost 70% completion percentage, almost 3,300 yards over the air, 27 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Outstanding numbers for Shedeur Sanders. Only makes this next season that much more important because now you have standards to live up to, other than the fact that your dad is coaching the team and there's always attention on you. Your dad's one of the best players in the NFL. This season has to do more with him and how he projects his future going forward in the NFL. Teams are going to be looking at him more precisely, more in-depth, breaking down his game because a lot of these teams are going to be in position to draft another quarterback next year, most likely. So he now has to not only live up to that expectation and those numbers, he has to live up to, his father, his dad saying things like this. And it's not anything new for Shedeur, I'm sure, always being around his dad and having him coach him basically all of his life and stuff like that. He's used to it. He's also not shy about saying what he feels or being a little boisterous and saying things, showing off, everything with the watch and stuff like that. All of that is in good fun. I really enjoy seeing that. I think it's entertaining. It adds another layer to these games. But I think it shouldn't be skimmed over that saying things like this, some teams might think or make a big deal out of it and think, oh, we're going to have to deal with this. This outside noise is only just going to add to more distractions when you're trying to run a team with a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders. These comments almost always never sit well with front office members, GMs, coaches like that. If Deion isn't shy about saying anything about his son, he's certainly not going to be shy about throwing some shade on some players, the team. If his son gets drafted anywhere high, I'm sure he won't be shy about saying anything if he doesn't like it. Now, he is Deion Sanders. He does have a right to say that. He knows football. There's not a lot of people who can say they know more football than Deion Sanders, but with that comes the more added pressure from the team, from other fans that might not like it. So there's that one aspect. But I think a lot of these teams, could look past that. And I think they should look past that because you're talking about a kid that's already looking very special. And quite frankly, it's just talk. It's not like Deion is going with anything further. It's not like he's in his son's ear talking bad about the team or maybe influencing him in that way to get his way out of the team. I don't think he'd ever do something like that. It's just talk. He's a dad. He can say things like that. No relative really in the NFL. We haven't seen a relative be shy about saying things like that. I was on here talking about Dak Prescott's brother and him saying stuff like that. Brandon Ayuk had some relatives saying stuff about him and the team in the Super Bowl, not using him as he felt that he should be used. You always have parents saying stuff like that. It carries more weight because it is Deion Sanders, but I think a lot of teams shouldn't really pay attention to that. It's not something that should be that important in all honesty. If you just focus on it, if you're the coach, just making sure Shedeur is getting supported and is put in a position to win, I think that's the best they can do, and just ignore all this talk from parents and players or former players like Deion Sanders. And it raises another topic or another aspect of this new generation, I think, of college players, younger players coming in. Obviously, with NIL, players get more power now in deciding where they want to go, transferring, trying to find the best financial situation for them. If that's good or bad for college football and amateurism and stuff like that, that's discussions other people have. But the fact is that these players are now getting more power because of that. They feel more, you could say, entitled to some aspect, a lot of them, because they feel that their name, image, and likeness carries a lot of weight. So now they feel more power in their voice to make big decisions like this. And I think we're going to see more players coming out. You're seeing it now with Caleb Williams talking the way he did in or at the combine, sounding very arrogant to some people, but very confident in my eyes because, he's coming from a place where people are trying to get him to sign NIL deals. People want him. People are after him for his name, image, and likeness and stuff like that. So I think he now feels that his voice carries a lot more weight. He feels more confident, more assured in himself that he carries more weight now with these other teams and with these companies reaching out to him, that he feels no pressure or no wrongdoing feeling that not participating in the combine is going to hurt him in any way, because he knows that teams, brands, and all these people want him to play on their team because of his talents on the field as well, but his name carries weight. And with NIL getting more attention and growing more and more, I think we're going to see more people, more players be more outspoken and take radical decisions that we haven't seen in the past, where everyone played it by the rules, played it the traditional way. I think we're going to see that grow more and more, and it helps in some aspect positively that you have personalities like Deion Sanders in college football drawing more attention to it. But on the flip side, you have these players as well with NIL being more outspoken. And if you think that's a bad thing, that's your opinion, that you're entitled to that opinion. It can get to a point where I think it is bad for the game. But if it goes as far as Caleb Williams has taken it, or these players just voicing how they feel, I don't think there's a problem with that. It only becomes a problem when it goes further and now it's affecting their play. They're deciding, I don't know. A lot of talk has been made about Caleb Williams pulling an Eli Manning and not wanting to get drafted to the Chicago Bears. Taking it that far, I think, could be a problem, but if he's not participating in the combine, or if he's saying, I prefer to get drafted here, here, and here, I don't think that's a problem. But when it affects their play, I think it becomes a bit sensitive and people will take it the wrong way, more so than this talk about, I want to play in warm weather because I just like it better. I'm going to live in this city, so I want it to be somewhere where I actually want to live and play. All that stuff matters. Deion pointed that out. It matters to these young kids where they're going to start their new life and all these things like that. And it makes sense. And I don't think this story should go further than, Deion said it. It's interesting. I don't think teams should take it too personally, too serious. And he's going to continue to say it. So if teams are annoyed by it, they're probably going to have to get used to it, because Deion's not going to shy away about making these sort of comments when Shedeur is in the league. But that was that. I thought it was pretty funny that he said it, and we're going to see how it all plays out when Shedeur Sanders gets eventually drafted. I think he'll be a high draft pick, but this upcoming season for him is going to be pivotal in where he lands, where his draft stock goes, and all that stuff like that. But moving forward now with the show, I'm going to send it to a quick break here, the first one of the show. And when I come back, I'm going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals off the field situation and them upgrading their stadium, a never-before-seen addition to an NFL stadium that has me very excited, and I'm excited to bring it to you guys and tell you guys all about that, as well as Mike Williams signing with the New York Jets, and a deeper discussion on the Los Angeles Chargers and if they made the right decision and going all in on their defense or not under new head coach Jim Harbaugh. So stick around. All of that information is coming to you guys right here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.